Now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about Exposed.
Right.
All right, now I'm a huge fan of Exposed. Exposed is probably my favorite movie of yours. As much as I love Fingers, I'm just an iconoclast, all right? I go to the one that, needs a little defense, all right, from people.
I love it too, and I just want to say before we say anything else to embarrass her, in her ongoing radiance and a great performance as Nastassja Kinski was here.
But for you, so I'm really glad to be here. Surprise. Thank you.
How many people here have seen Exposed before? Oh, cool. You got I guess some Exposed fans here. I'm a huge fan of the movie. One of the things about it, though, is I actually saw this movie opening night at the Village in Westwood.
Oh, yeah. Across the street from Flashdance.
Yes, it was. As a matter, yeah, Flashdance was at the Bruin. That's exactly true.
Yeah.
Now, it was a wild screening. All right, this was definitely a film that people didn't know how to handle on its opening weekend.
Right. True in New York also.
And but it's made me love it, because if you've ever had one of those movies that the audience starts going against it, but you get it.
Right.
You get it. It's like all of a sudden now I'm getting angry at the audience.
Yes.
All right, I'm with you, and they're not, and I'm like, fuck you. All right, this guy's got it going on. All right. And so I'm like angry man at the Village in Westwood, as the audience is starting to turn against me too.
Right, yeah. Tales of Ordinary Madness is a movie that affected me that way, and I railed against the entire theater. It's right, and I honestly don't believe that would be the case as it wasn't here when I watched the end of it before. It was the ending that got people in particular, because I felt the audience was there, totally, a little less there, a little less there, not there, and then at the end, which I think is the great possible ending for that movie. I'll tell you a harrowing story about Jackie Kennedy, who was very close to Nureyev. We screened the movie for her before it opened, and when there was the violent explosion at the end, and the shooting and the killing at the end, she let out this cry and this shriek. Small screening, there were just 4 people there, and covered her face and broke down and started crying. Yeah. And this was maybe 3 days after having seen an angry audience at that same scene, and I thought, well, here's the real effect on someone who really understands this stuff, as opposed to, I also was angry at the audience. I mean, you can't as a director go following people on the street, shaking them and putting a gun to their head and say, what's wrong with you? But I felt like, it would have been a terrible invasion of privacy recording that moment with Jackie Kennedy and saying, this is the way you're supposed to respond to it.
Well, the thing about it, one of the things I loved about Exposed is because actually to me, it was a great movie to see not knowing a damn thing about it. All right, because one of the things that's so terrific about it, and it still kind of surprises me to this day when I started just thinking about talking about it, was that for the first almost half of the picture, at least first 45 minutes of the picture, it's like an old Joan Crawford movie. That was the staple of Joan Crawford movies or something, is she comes to the big city from wherever she came from, gets a job as a waitress or a hat check girl or something, and now if you cut 20